You look at your career, you've got a European Top Fuel championship. Can you explain to the Freak Nation what the difference is in that versus, again, I know, I'm not stupid. I'm just trying to, again, get people up to speed here.
Yeah.
We know what NHRA means to people outside of the United States that run drag racing. I mean, it's important that you have that.
Yeah, so for me, of course, that's where I learned to drive these cars. And there is differences. Of course, NHRA is the biggest stage in the world. We have the biggest drivers in the world here, and also world-class tracks and a longer series, a longer schedule, and a lot more driving. And obviously bigger budgets, bigger teams. Everything is basically bigger here in US. And this is where that is as the highest, you know. But over in Europe, we still have really good drivers, really good teams, even if it's lower budget teams. We have good tracks. We have a more variation of tracks, so to say. Some tracks are really high standard, and I would say are similar to some of the tracks over here, while other tracks are tracks that we only run at once a year. And, you know, it could be a road course track where we utilize the straightaway or so on, and they set it up. So definitely over here, like the consistency of the tracks and the track prep and all that is, a lot more consistent over here, since NHRA is doing that on all the circuit. So that is the difference. But car-wise, most of the cars in Europe are cars that are from US. It's just run them over here, and then they've sold them, and they've ended up in Europe. So usually a little older. The car that I won the championship with and ran over in Europe, it was 10 years old, and that was still a fairly young car, so to say, for Europe. But the regulation is basically the same in Europe. We base our regulation and our rule book on NHRA's rule book. So the only difference can be that sometimes if there's some smaller rule changes coming into NHRA, it takes a year or two before it makes its way to Europe, basically. If it's not a big safety rule, then they usually implement it right away.
So you're churning 11,000 horsepower in Europe as you are in your Top Fuel car this afternoon at Brainerd.
Yeah, so basically in Europe, I would say we have a little less horsepower, not like significant like that, but maybe in Europe we still talk about 11,000 horsepower, and over here we talk about 12,000 nowadays. We run usually a little older setup or older parts in Europe. Not all teams and not all the time, but with the tracks not always being as good as they are over here, it can sometimes benefit of running a setup that might be a little older, so to say, from over here. But other than that, like stepping on the loud pedal and everything you do, like your routines are basically exactly the same. It buyers more from like your team. Like now, for example, this car is a canopy car, so I have some other things on my routine here that I did not have in Europe, but that's not because it's a European car or a European track. It's just because it's a difference between how the teams run the cars and what type of cars they have.
Ida Zetterstrms is the European FIA Top Fuel champion. Let me ask you a couple of basic questions. You said that things get a year or so away from going overseas. Were you running at 1,000 feet or at 1,320?
We were running at 1,000 feet. So nitro classes over there run at 1,000 feet. So it's the same as over here. Yeah.
So your speeds are approximately the same, and the the lapse time, is it about the same for the top cars like yours?
The ET, so I have the European ET record, is a 377. So of course over here we are quicker at some of the really quick tracks, but we also see some of the tracks this time of year where you're running those numbers. So that basically comes down most to track, and you usually see lower speeds in Europe, and oftentimes that is because the tracks just aren't as well prepped basically on the top end. We are usually very strong up until the 8 mile, and then I would say that the tracks feel like they're a little looser at the top end. Over in Europe, I had the European speed record of 321 miles per hour over there, but I actually had one of my old teammates took it from me last week.
So when you beat Steve Torrance on Sunday, when you were coasting to a stop at the top end, was it the smile under your helmet must have been pretty big, and you said, "This is easy, I could do this"?
Well, honestly, I had a good feeling going into that run. I was nervous, and I was actually happy I was a little nervous just because I hadn't been nervous up until that point. I expected big nerves coming into like my first qualifying run, the weekend, and so on. But it just felt very, very normal. I usually always get nervous on race day, so when I felt those nerves come in, I thought that's probably a good thing. So yeah, in my mind, I just felt do my normal routine, do everything that I know how to do, and then we'll see if it's enough. And this time it really was. And turning off that track, I actually hadn't seen my own win light. I never saw Steve. But sometimes when it's super, super close, you can barely see the other car, especially when you're in a close cockpit car like this. So I wasn't 100% sure if I had won or not, but, they call you into a different lane if you win or not. So when I saw they called me into that lane, I felt like, heck yeah, this feels good.
So before I give it back to Kenny, Ida Zetterstrms is the FIA Top Fuel champion. A lot of drivers here say they don't race the competition. They race themselves or the track. Is that what you do? Were you worried about Steve Torrance or Statman in the other lane? Were you just going after racing yourself to get down there as fast as you could?
Yeah, that's very true. So, I mean, you always race the track and yourself, just like you say. You go out there and you do your best thing. For me, it's not about if it's Steve Torrance or whoever it is in the other lane. It's more in this regard how we qualified. Of course, we knew that he had a stronger number than us in qualifying, so you of course look at your opponent in that way. Not exactly, you don't look at the name and say, hey, this name is who we're running and that's how we're gonna make our tune up, but you of course look at the data of what they've been running this weekend and how they've been doing in their sessions, and that's exactly what you do to make a call for how the car is going to run or so on. But I never change my routine in the car depending on who I race. I do exactly what I always do, and don't want to get it changed up because you have a tougher opponent or not.
Ida, why start now at Brainerd, and why didn't you start early in the season in the Top Fuel class?
Basically, we needed time. Like, we started building this team I moved over in February, and that's basically where we started for real to work on all of the program that we put out on track right now. So we definitely had a shorter period of time to work on it. Most people build race teams, of course, in the off season, and we had to do it at the same time as my teammate Tony Schumacher is running, and my crew chief John Schaefer was also tuning on that car together with Mike Neff earlier in the season. So he went out to all of those races, which of course means a lot of time away from the shop, and we had less time to work on everything we had there. So we had like a little less people in place to kind of put this program together from the beginning of the year. And then basically 3 months ago, we started hiring more people to have a few guys full-time. We have not had a full-time crew in-house, but we have had 3 key people and John Schaefer leading this whole operation. And it takes time with everything from, getting parts in, building engines, equipping trailers and tools and everything, and then going out testing. I mean, we needed that too. We haven't done as much testing as we would have wanted to do, but we still had to go out there and, try the car out on track and also see that everything works, from, setting the tent up on the trailer and just making sure we have all the tools we need and so on. So it's a lot of small things that goes into building this to come out, and we didn't want to rush it and come out and not be ready, not have enough parts to go rounds and all that. So that's why it was important for us to do it the right way, so that we could actually come out here and beat guys like Steve Torrance on the first round when we come out here.
Wow, that's still there are a lot of guys here that have been racing a long time that haven't beaten Steve Torrance yet. You said in the notes, you said you were trying for the NHRA Rookie of the Year. I assume there's enough events left to get the points necessary to do that, and that's going to add to your resume.
So with the Rookie of the Year, I think it's 5 races or more, then you automatically qualify for being eligible for Rookie of the Year. If you don't, qualify into that basically that year, but you still have run more than 5 races, you can't run for it next year. So for me, this is the year I'm running for Rookie of the Year. I don't have any chance to go for it another year, even if The plan is to run a full season next year. That won't matter for that. It's now or never, so to say. Since we're running 8 races, we're running from now and then the rest of the year. So we are coming out with a strong Rookie of the Year campaign. You've probably seen our cars, very patriotic, red, white, and blue, American flag, and a big BP logo on the side, and we have all of that, and it looks really cool. And it's a little playoff on both the fact that I'm obviously not American, but I'm here living my American dream. So we wanted to make it very American, but also playing a little bit of the fact that it's election year this year. So we have come out with a campaign, but I'm not running for president. I'm running for Rookie of the Year. It's not a campaign you can vote for, though. Like, it's not like we can have fans and followers vote for it. It's more of a fun thing, and a fun thing to show that we're out here. We are doing everything we can to run for this Rookie of the Year. But obviously, it comes down to your performance on the track. That's where it's at, and that's where we're trying to push our hardest.
Ida Zetterstrms joining us here in the Freak Nation. Top fuel pilot in the NHRA. I know that sounds pretty sweet to you, Ida. You're running with Tony Schumacher, who's had his share of race wins and championships. And I don't expect you to freaking hammer on the boss or your teammate, but have there been disagreements over suggestions that he's made running the Top Fuel car?
No, I would say basically me and Tony are not trying to, replicate each other and run. He knows I have my way of running and he has his way of running. I think it might have been different if I was brand new and he was, teaching me how to drive. But I come in with my experience, and I know a lot of how I like it to feel in the car and how I want the car to set up. And the same way that he has done this for a long time, and he knows exactly how he is used to driving and how he's used to feeling. So for me, we have not tried to do that much going into the actual driving of the car. We have more talked about things that can show up on race day that I'm not used to. And like this morning, I asked him if he had any advice for me, or sometimes he knows that some of these guys out here, they do something on the starting line or whatever it might be that I have no clue about, and that's a part where he can let me know that, hey, watch out for this or whatever it is. And that's more of that dynamic we have had. And of course, I've had a lot of fun spending time with Tony's team this whole season, being at all the events, helping them out with I've done fuel and just helped out with stuff like that because I have a hard time sitting still. But it's been great to be able to see all that. And of course, Tony has shared, sometimes when you come to a track, he can come in and he can let me know that, like, hey, at this track, for example, it's leaning a little outwards at this end, like, come and look at this, and stuff like that has been very helpful.
Wow, they call Tony Schumacher the Sarge here, and that means he's got a lot of military and a lot of demanding. So I hope he doesn't step over the line there. Let me ask you this. The NHRA here in the United States is the most diverse of all motorsports here in the United States. We've had female champions in practically every category. Has that made your appearance here that much easier, that they're used to women winning championships even in all the categories here in the United States?
Yeah, I mean, I think overall seeing women succeed and do so well in drag racing in all classes, basically, I think it helps to show how strong we are out here, and that the sport, like you say, is so diverse. It doesn't matter if you're literally 18 years old or if you are 75, you can be out here, you can be competitive, and you can win. Doesn't matter if you're a guy or a girl, where you're from. Like, this is, if you're a good driver, the race car does not know what you look like. That's basically what it is. And I feel like all the teams out here are very welcoming to diversity. And I feel like having had women before me, showing that, of course, this can be done, it helps not only for me as a driver to see that, but for talking to sponsors and everything. It is, girls aren't out here just competing. We're out here winning races, taking names and dominating. And that's what helps when you are trying to show that, hey, this is a sport where we belong, because you can literally point at it and, just count the names up that have, taken championships and done great things in sports.
Ida, I'm curious. You're from Sweden. No joke, Kenny. You're Swedish. And I'm curious, the opinion on women in sports there versus where we are. You have 2 women that finished on the podium in the ARCA series on the Springfield Mile this weekend. You've got Catherine Legg, who is running the IndyCar race at Worldwide Technology Raceway on Saturday night. Is it a thing in Sweden when women succeed? And male sports, or have you gotten past that to where you're right? The car doesn't know if it's a man or a woman. Just suck it up. It's a person.
Well, I can tell you this. Last year in Top Fuel, 1, 2, and 3 in the championship were girls. The only thing I disliked with that in Top Fuel Dragster was that it looked like it was a women's class when we three shared the podium. It looked like there were no boys there, but the fact was that we just beat all the other boys. So it's like, yes, there's a lot of good women in drag racing. We were basically 50-50 almost last year in Top Fuel, which I think says a lot. The only place where I have raced where it hasn't been as many women was when I raced the bikes. When I came into Super Street Bike that I raced before this, and also did a race in Pro Street Bike over here in US, many times I was the only woman, and if I wasn't the only woman, it could have been one, or it had been one previously or so on, but I was very alone there. So the first time I won there, I was the first woman to ever win in that class. When I won that championship, I was the first woman to ever win that championship, and we had a lot of first as a woman when I raced the bike. But on the car scene, there's been so many good women out there dominating.
Ida, I'm curious. You're from Sweden, no joke, Kenny. You're Swedish, and I'm curious the opinion on women in sports there versus where we are. You have two women that finished on the podium in the ARCA series on the Springfield Mile this weekend. You've got Catherine Legg, who is running the IndyCar race at Worldwide Technology Raceway on Saturday night. Is it a thing in Sweden when women succeed in male sports, or have you gotten past that to where you're right? The car doesn't know if it's a man or a woman. Just suck it up. It's a person.
Well, I can tell you this. Last year in Top Fuel, 1, 2, and 3 in the championship were girls. The only thing I disliked with that in Top Fuel Dragster was that it looked like it was a women's class when we three shared the podium. It looked like there were no boys there, but the fact was that we just beat all the other boys. So it's like, yes, there's a lot of good women in drag racing. We were basically 50-50 almost last year in Top Fuel, which I think says a lot. The only place where I have raced where it hasn't been as many women was when I raced the bikes. When I came into Super Street Bike that I raced before this, and also did a race in Pro Street Bike over here in US, many times I was the only woman, and if I wasn't the only woman, it could have been one, or it had been one previously or so on, but I was very alone there. So the first time I won there, I was the first woman to ever win in that class. When I won that championship, I was the first woman to ever win that championship, and we had a lot of first as a woman when I raced the bike. But on the car scene, there's been so many good women out there dominating.
But how many cars will show up, say Top Fuel cars, will show up at a major meet there in Sweden?
So after COVID, it's been a lot less. I'm not going to lie. Before COVID, we were usually between 8 and 10 in Top Fuel. But last year, we were, I think as most, we were 6. So it's definitely less. You have 3 runs on Sunday instead of 4 runs as over here. But when there's 3 tough runs, it still makes a big difference. It's still very tough out there, but yes, it's definitely less. It is, but it also depends on the class. I mean, Pro Mod over there is really strong, for example, and you usually have 18-20 cars. When I raced with the bike in Super Street Bike, we had an event where they put the cap on 38 bikes because they couldn't take more on that. So it's very competitive compared to the different classes. And when we won the championship on the bike, we were a whole lot of drivers trying to get in on that. But in Top Fuel and the nitro classes, it's been hard after COVID to get the car count back up, not gonna lie.
Wow. Ida Zetterstrms, you talk about championships like some people talk about wins. You win championships on a bike, Top Fuel championships. Give me one thing, the first thing you'll do to celebrate one of those championships.
When we won with the bike, that championship, we actually celebrated that night with the number 2 in the championship. We had gone, back and forth that year competing for that championship. That other team, they were always a little ahead of us, and we were trying to catch them. And then in the semifinals, on the absolute last race of the year, we beat them and we won. And after that, they came over. We sat there. We had some beers, and we celebrated, had good food, and it was just an overall really good end to that weekend and a way to celebrate that championship. And of course, when we won the championship with my Top Fuel team, we celebrated all night with my crew. We really liked each other. So we have on the last event at Sandapod in Europe, they have the award ceremonies on that day, on that night. So we won the championship and we won the event. So we had 2 double up prizes to collect and a big bottle of champagne, and we celebrated and had a great time.
Well, there was one driver, Ida Zetterstrms, FIA Top Fuel driver from Sweden, champion from Sweden. We had one driver, Kenny knows where I'm going with this, at the last event of the year at a big party. He made a margarita mixer from a Top Fuel engine. And he turns the thing on and mixes up margaritas and pours some for everybody. So that was a huge party at the last event of the year. I cannot imagine anybody anywhere else is doing anything remotely close to that. So you got a little free space there to work up and celebrate.
Yeah, I like margaritas, so that could be cool. Yeah, definitely. Look forward to that.
Well, you know, Del Worsham, it was Del Worsham and his Top Fuel margarita that he would have a huge party at the end of the year, and you know, people would be, before people called Ubers and Lyfts, they would just sleep there on the track.
Sounds smart. Yeah.
Hey, over my right shoulder, I've got a Mattel doll, which is Ashley Force, Courtney Force, Brittany Force. I could go way back to Shirley Muldowney, Melanie Troxel. I could go on and on of women succeeding in drag racing. Was there one woman that you followed as a kid, or was it a male driver that you followed as your go-to favorite?
I actually never had one go-to favorite. I feel like I've always had huge respect for all the drivers out here, especially in the top classes, and you know, getting here and all the success we've seen. I mean, I grew up at the racetrack. I've been at the track since I was 3 weeks old. I've been around racing my whole life. So I've looked up to people for different reasons. Sometimes you look up to someone because they're just so damn good, you know, they're the GOAT out there. But then sometimes you look up to someone just for the way they talk to people and take care of their fans, and, you know, are always very good with all that. And sometimes, you know, they can just be really good at, you know, expressing themselves or social media or whatever it is. I feel like I've looked up to people for various reasons throughout the years. And in Europe, we had, of course, Anita Mäkelä that won the championship in Top Fuel several years. She was always really good with her fans and always very, very good at racing. So that was definitely one of the women that I saw in Top Fuel classes over in Europe and looked up to. But I can't say I've had one specific idol growing up.
Whoa. That's not where I thought you would go with that. I thought there would be somebody there from the United States that you would have a go-to.
No, obviously, I mean, growing up, I've seen Ashley Force, you know, racing. I always thought that was very cool, and I looked up to her a lot. But I can't say that there was one specific person that, you know, made me do it or so on.
Wow.
I believe it was Marcus Ericsson. You know who Marcus Ericsson is, of course, IndyCar Series driver. We had him in, gosh, it was either after, regardless. And I think he said he was going to celebrate with some pea soup. Is it green pea soup?
Yeah, that's Swedish, yeah. Yeah. And you have to have like some good like bacon or something in there. Like, nope. Or ham, I think it actually is. But no, we have good pea soup in Sweden, actually.
Is beer the part of the Purina drag racing chow in Sweden as it is here in the United States?
I would say beer is very common, yeah. For sure. We have also something from Finland. So I don't drink a lot, but we have like something that's called long drink. So it's these blue cans, and we say long drink or lonkero. And those, we have a few of my old team, they love those. So we had our clutch guy, for example, he loved those. So we hid them until Sunday night when we took him to the track so that he could get those. But basically a gin mix. So it's from Finland, and they're very popular over there. So.
Well, look, man, we've closed a few races with drivers in all series over the last 24 years of doing SpeedFreaks, Ida, and I think Statman would agree that the best parties that we've had, frankly, with teams and drivers have been the NHRA from the very first year of us doing this to where we are now. So you're in good company if you want to throw down and have a hell of a party.
Oh, I
especially talk to Tony about SpeedFreaks. He's been a favorite of ours and for a long time. We had a couple of really interesting conversations with him in Colorado, all over the country. Tony is righteous and good people.
Yeah, and he knows how to throw on a party too. So.
Bam, that a girl. Well, Ida, this has been fun, man. It wouldn't. Nothing would make us happier to get you in here after a race win. Let's just look.
Yes.
Look, you went one round to Brainerd, which is a success in its own. Let's go 2 rounds next, right?
Yeah, so we made it to the semifinals. We actually earned a bye by beating #1 qualifier Steve Torrance. So we made it to semifinals where the driver accidentally made a big error, and that will not happen again. So hopefully when we come to Indy, we can get past that semifinal.
What was the big error that that driver made, Ida?
Oh, it's so red. I've never in my life actually. When I did junior dragster, I've had a few red lights, but that's been, you know, you red light by 3,000 or 6,000 or something like that, just a little bit. This time I went before the 3 even dropped, so it's never happened to me before. So strange. I had a bye run the run before. I was practicing, you know, staging shallow, hitting my lights. I had a 48 reaction time. Felt like I was set up really good for my run against Langdon. Came in there, no nerves, sat there, waited for him to get in, and thought, great, he's taking a little extra time. Like, not that he was late or anything. Like, I just went in really quick. I was waiting for him to get in, and I felt like, this is good. I have some time to go. Looking at that tree, like, waiting for it to go on, and for some reason my foot just pounded that troll, and I went and I looked at the tree and I was like, what are you doing? It hasn't even turned on yet. So that has never in my life happened to me before. I obviously saw that big red light, but I still went the full pass because we are collecting data and getting ready for Indy. So every full pass down the track matters for this team. So yeah, I did that, and as soon as I stepped on the throttle, Langdon did the same, because of course you hear a car, you go. So I talked to him at the top end about it, and he said, hey, all of us has done this, so now you've done it too. Talked to many drivers, both Tony and Caps, right here before I came in, and they both said that, yeah, we've all done it. And I said, I don't know why it happened. And they say, we don't know either. It just, sometimes your leg just want to go. And we actually saw it 3 times during race day today with, of course, driver that has done this way longer than me, but I can tell you I've beaten myself up about it for many hours now. It's as a driver, like, that's gut wrenching. Like, watching that, knowing what you've done, turning it, just feeling ashamed and feeling like, what the hell did I just do? But they say that everybody has to do it, so I'm hoping that now that I've done it, it's out of the way and I don't have to do that again. So we're staying in testing tomorrow here in Brainerd, trying to get some more passes in and getting ready for Indy. So overall, we had a fantastic weekend as a team. I mean, we ran 3 out of 4 qualifying passes were, you know, straight down the board, really, you know, good solid passes. And also in racing, of course, first run win against Steve Torrance on a whole shot was fantastic for us. And then also we had a solo run to be able to try some things before we got ready for the semifinal. And even the semifinal, even though I messed up, we had a really good run as a team. So I'm very proud of the strides we've made. I mean, it took a while to build this team, obviously, but it all feels very worth it now, seeing the performance we actually had on track. And now we know what to do for the next one.
Have you ever, and I ask this for a reason because have you ever drank nitro?
I haven't, but I have accidentally, you know, had it come up in my mouth when you mix fuel or do so, but I haven't drank it on purpose. I'll tell you that.
I did. We did. Stat, were you there when we drank a little bit of it with Clay Milliken?
Yeah, I had. He forced me to. He took a couple of events before I got nerves, but yeah.
I don't know if that. Look, hey, I've never red lit in a Top Fuel car, so there's something I've not done.
Well, I've raced for 22 years and I haven't done it either, so I have a hard time like knowing what I did for this to happen. But yeah, I didn't. I can't explain it. Let's just put it like that. I can't explain what happened. I just know that I know I did it. Like, I can't deny it. I'm not blaming anyone else than myself.
Freak Nation, it's good to get her in here for the first time. Ida Zetterstrms joining us here in the Freak Nation. It's not going to be the last. Crasher and yours truly will be out at Indy doing our thing, and we'll swing by and say hello to you.
Sounds great. Looking forward to see you there.
Whatever you do, General Tire delivers.